She was just a waitress trying to get through her double shift, until the moment she picked up a wallet left behind by a mysterious billionaire. When she opened it to look for ID, her hands froze. Inside was a worn, creased photo of her mother, taken decades ago. But her mom had never spoken of this man. What the billionaire revealed next would shatter everything she thought she knew and leave her sobbing in the middle of the café. The rain had been pouring all morning, tapping against the café windows like a steady drumbeat of forgotten promises. And inside the dimly lit diner on 4th and Monroe, Amelia Collins wiped her hands on her apron as she poured coffee into a chipped white mug, same as she had done for the past 3 years. The same uniform, the same tired smile, the same aching feet by hour 7 of her double shift. But she didn't complain, couldn't complain. Not with the stack of medical bills piling up in the drawer back home and the smell of foreclosure lingering in every unpaid envelope that came through their tiny apartment door, especially now that her mother's condition had worsened, and the experimental treatment remained stubbornly out of reach, like everything else in Amelia's life, always a few dollars too far, a few years too late. So when the corner bell chimed and a tall, sharply dressed man stepped through the door, she barely glanced up from the register, just another customer passing through the drizzle with polished shoes and secrets to keep. But something about him made the other customers quiet down, made the usual clinking of spoons and low murmur of conversation fade like a background song being turned off. And when he sat in the far booth, the one that had remained empty all morning, he didn't pull out a phone, didn't glance at the menu, didn't even take off his charcoal grey coat. He just stared out the window as though he was looking for something far beyond the grey city skyline. And Amelia, always one to respect space, waited a moment before approaching, pot of coffee in hand and a polite, "Good morning, sir," ready on her lips. But he turned to her before she could speak, and his eyes, deep and unsettlingly familiar, scanned her face with a sudden intensity that made her pause. "Black, no sugar," he said softly, as though he'd ordered it 100 times before. And though she hadn't asked, she poured it without a word, sliding the mug toward him and retreating just as quietly. But he didn't drink it, didn't touch the mug, only placed a slim black leather wallet on the table and rested his hand on it, tapping gently, rhythmically, like it was a ticking clock only he could hear, and it wasn't a tea until he stood up 10 minutes later and left a $100 bill under the untouched coffee that Amelia realized he had forgotten the wallet. "Sir, wait," she called out, but the man had already disappeared into the storm, swallowed by the street's bustle, so she grabbed the wallet and opened it, intending only to find an ID, maybe a business card, anything to return it. But the moment it opened, everything inside her shifted, like a trapdoor collapsing beneath her ribs, because nestled between sleek black cards and crisp currency was a photo, aged at the edges, soft from handling and unmistakably familiar. A photo of her mother, young, smiling, standing in front of the fountain in Lincoln Square, wearing the exact sundress she had once described to Amelia in one of her rare, wistful stories about her youth. And though the image was clearly old, taken long before Amelia was born, there was no mistaking the gentle curve of her mother's jawline, the slight dimple in her cheek, the quiet mischief in her eyes, and scrawled on the back in precise handwriting was a date from 27 years ago and 2 initials, L.J. MC, and Amelia's hands began to shake, her throat suddenly dry as her mind raced to connect impossible dots. How did this man have this photo? Why had he looked at her like that? And why was her mother's past, always so carefully edited and retold in vague brushstrokes, suddenly staring back at her from a billionaire's wallet? And with her heart thudding in her chest, Amelia took a break she couldn't afford, slipped out into the storm, and followed the only clue she had, the name on the credit card, Liam Jameson. And though she didn't recognize it, A quick search on her phone pulled up more than she could process. Forbes covers, headlines, gala photos, tech empire founder worth billions, known for being reclusive, philanthropic, unmarried, and intensely private. And suddenly it all made sense. His expensive coat, the way everyone had quieted when he entered, the weight he carried with him like a shadow he couldn't shake. And yet, none of that explained why he had her mother's photo, so she did something reckless, something bold, something her tired, overworked self would never have done if desperation and grief hadn't been swirling in her stomach like a storm. She took the train uptown to the corporate headquarters of Jameson Technologies and walked straight to the front desk with nothing but the wallet and a half-shaking voice. "I need to see Mr. Jameson. It's personal." And of course, the receptionist had laughed politely, told her he was in meetings all day, escorted by security, too busy for walk-ins, until Amelia, in a trembling voice, placed the photo on the desk and whispered, "Tell him it's about her." And within 3 minutes, she was being ushered through security doors into a private elevator, and then into a glass-walled office high above the skyline, where Liam Jameson stood with his back turned, staring out at the city like a man watching a life he had built brick by brick and still didn't recognize. "You found the photo," he said quietly without turning around, and Amelia stepped forward, heart pounding. "That's my mother," she said. "Why do you have this? Who are you to her?" And that's when he turned slowly, and the walls he had spent decades building came crumbling down with a sigh. "Her name was Margaret," he said, and hearing it aloud like that, her full name, not Mom or Mama, made Amelia's breath catch. "We met when I was 19. She worked at the campus bookstore. She was bright, bold, and the most brilliant woman I'd ever met. But I was ambitious, driven, and stupid." And as his voice cracked, Amelia saw not the billionaire or the businessman, but a boy who had once loved and lost. "We were in love, real love. But I left her," he said. "I chased success, moved across the country, told myself I'd come back for her. But by the time I did, she was gone, moved, vanished. I never stopped thinking about her. I carried that photo every day for 27 years. And Amelia, barely breathing, whispered, "She never told me." And Liam looked up, eyes searching hers. "Told you what?" And the words came out like glass, like a truth too fragile to touch. "That my father left before I was born." And silence settled like a fog between them before realization shattered through it, and Liam stepped back, stunned, a hand gripping the edge of the desk. "No, you can't mean—" But she nodded, tears now streaking her face. "I don't know who my father is." She never said.